My guest today is Stephanie Berman, the founder of the AZIZA Project. Her story begins with her own suffering with multiple gynecologic pain generators for more than 13 years. You are now free from suffering, is that right?
I wish that was true, but I'm not. It's like layers of an onion. We're always discovering new things. Intercourse was painful, didn't know what to do, didn't know who to talk to. I went back to the dermatologist after being on that medication for 6 months, and she gaslit me. Endometriosis excision, actually going in and cutting out the endometriosis, is considered the gold standard treatment. Unfortunately, most surgeons who do that are out of network because insurance literally does not have a code for billing purposes for endometriosis excision. I actually had like a pain coach. I only met with her once because she told me, Stephanie, at some point you're gonna just have to accept that your pain is all in your head. I didn't want to be told, oh, it's all in your head, because I knew
Right.
it wasn't all in my head.
What are you doing to start imagining a global AZIZA project?
Where I'm working right now is trying to build a solid donor base of people who are giving to the AZIZA Project on a monthly basis. Even $5 a month is fantastic. 16 can pay for one blood test for a patient, and as we grow and we have more donors, and maybe eventually we'll get that $10,000 gift or something that we can use to then pay for one patient to go to Tulsa to get treated for vaginismus. And then we have this fantastic story of, hey, maybe she wasn't able to consummate her marriage, but now she's pregnant and due in 4 months.
Like, instead of buying that one purse, help a woman, like you said, be pregnant. That story is priceless. It's not a $10,000 story. It's a priceless story, giving someone the gift of being able to create life. Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiat. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and how we can help. My guest today is Stephanie Berman, the founder of the AZIZA Project. Her story begins with her own suffering with multiple gynecologic pain generators for more than 13 years. She went through all types of medical strategies and routes, for all the way from naturopathy, homeopathy, and all of that, all the way to the other end of the spectrum and chemical medications, and to no avail, unfortunately. After changing a dozen or so doctors and opinions, the light would shine in the form of Dr. Corey Babb at the Haven Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hello, Stephanie, and welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Let's start with, if I'm saying this correctly, you are now free from suffering. Is that right? In the sense of the
I
stuff you're
wish
going
that
through?
was
No,
true.
it's not. Okay.
But I'm not. We are still. It's like layers of an onion. So we'll find like one issue and we'll start working on making that one better, and then we'll find another issue and then we'll have to make that one better. And so it's like it's one thing after another with me, it seems. We're always discovering new things, and the good news is, I think the diagnostic process is
Mhm.
almost done. So I think
Okay.
we have names for just about everything. But as far as actually defeating them and healing them, no, we're still working on it.
Okay. So in that case, let's go back, way back, to the start of, I'm going to call it, your journey of pain,
Mhm.
and how this affected you on multiple levels, socially, physically, emotionally, economically, and many other ways. So take your time. I mean, this is one of the more important parts that I really want to focus on. So take your time and go as long as you, how it started affecting you on all these multiple levels. And
Yeah.
so, we can, because I want myself and everybody watching and listening to kind of relate to what you're going, so we can learn.
Okay. Good. I'm glad you want them to learn, because I'm gonna throw a bunch of terms out. I will try to remember to define them. If you hear me say one, Allie, that I don't that you don't understand or you're not sure what the definition is, say, "Hey, Stephanie, can you define that
Okay,
for us? What was
perfect.
that?"
I'll stop you
Um,
everywhere we don't understand.
yeah. So, oh, I just about knocked over my tea. Um, started back in high school, painful periods. Was told, hey, that's fairly normal, but my mom took me to the doctor and they said, well, we could put her on the pill. And my mom's like, no, I really don't want to put her on the pill. She's only, 16 or whatever. And so I just kind of suffered, Tylenol, Motrin, whatever. Um, Midol. Um, until like through college, got married, intercourse was painful, didn't know what to do, didn't know who to talk to. Um, then I had
Wait,
some
wait,
other
wait. Can we stop? Wait, can we stop right there? You said
yeah,
something I want to stop on. Intercourse was painful, didn't know what to do, didn't know who to talk to.
yeah,
A lot of people don't know who to talk to.
yeah.
Who should they talk to?
Dr. Corey Babb in Tulsa.
Okay. Because a lot of girls go through this, they think it's something wrong with them. They think it's something, they blame themselves and they kind of go through the pain and they keep going through the pain forever thinking, oh, I should just, be strong about it or something. But, when you said I didn't know who to talk to, it just, flashbacks of so many women saying things like that, going through pain. So I really wanted to pause there and say, speak with someone, speak with family, speak with doctors, speak with someone. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
for
go on.
sure. Don't be afraid to speak up. The first place I went was our family doctor, and he really didn't know what to do. And this wasn't even like as soon as we got married. Like I dealt with painful intercourse for a number of years until I developed another dermatological symptom down there. So like a skin type symptom. And so that's when I went to my family doctor finally. I'm like, what is going on here? And he's like, I don't know. So he sent me to an OBGYN, who was also like, I don't know what's going on. Tried pelvic floor physical therapy, couldn't deal with it because the pain was so intense right at the entrance. And um, then went back to the OBGYN who sent me to the vulvar pain clinic at the University of Washington in Seattle. And they didn't know what to do or didn't care to do anything. They basically looked at my husband, said, be gentle, and sent us right back out the door. And that was supposed to be the vulvar pain experts in my state. So then it was like, okay, now we don't know what to do. I have some hip pain. Let's go see a chiropractor. So I spent a number of years seeing a chiropractor. And throughout that time, my menstrual related pain was getting worse. So in about 2018, I looked at my husband and I said, hey, I think I might have endometriosis, which is the lining of the uterus in the wrong place in the body. Like it gets outside the uterus. And it causes pain and inflammation and all of that. So I said, hey, if we don't deal with this, I'm going to be bedridden like more than I am now. And I wasn't bedridden a lot, but it was enough that I was bleeding extra. I was just in pain multiple days a month, and it wasn't fun. So I was able to reach out to one of the top endometriosis surgeons in the US, actually lives like 4 hours from me. So I reached out to her. I said, hey, I know you have a super long waiting list. Can I get on it? And because her waiting list at the time was like a year plus. And so she's like, sure, I'll get you on the waiting list. We probably can't get you in and to be seen until 2020. And she was saying this in 2019, of course, not knowing what was coming in 2020.
Yes.
Um, so I did get in to see her finally in 2020. I had a telehealth appointment with her in July, and just described my symptoms to her and over the telehealth platform. And she's like, yeah, it sounds like you really need to come in and see me, and we'll do an ultrasound and see if we see endometriosis. And endometriosis is not usually diagnosed with ultrasound. I will put that caveat in here. She has just been excising endometriosis so much in the last 30 years. Like, it's all she's done in the last 30 years. And so she knows, like, she did her own ultrasound and was like, oh, yeah, this looks like endometriosis. This might be adenomyosis. Yeah, this definitely needs to come out. So, uh, went back in October of 2020, and that's when I had my hysterectomy and endometriosis excised. And that pain had gotten significantly worse than the dermatological issues I was dealing with. And so once I had my hysterectomy, all of a sudden the dermatological issues seemed worse. And they may not have actually gotten worse. It was just like, but I had multiple pain generators that were taken care of through the hysterectomy. I was diagnosed with endometriosis, adenomyosis, which is when like the endometriosis actually grows into the uterine muscle wall. Um, and then endosalpingiosis, which is fallopian tube tissue in the wrong place. So I was, and I think they said that, I think pathology said, oh yeah, you've got some fibroids in there too. So, and fibroids themselves can cause pain. So it's like the endometriosis needed to come out and the uterus needed to come out too. So got that all taken care of. My vulvar pain started getting worse. So the endometriosis surgeon's nurse practitioner said, hey, go talk to a dermatologist. So spring of 2021, I finally made my way to a dermatologist who took one look at my tissue and said, hey, this looks like lichen sclerosis. Here's how we're going to treat it. And you should be fine, because I have multiple other patients with similar symptoms who are on that same path and they're doing great. And so we started down that path and nothing helped. I was on a particular medication. I can almost guarantee you've seen commercials for it with the green and yellow lettering. I don't want to say the name. But for eczema or atopic dermatitis, and that medication didn't do a thing. And so I was kind of at the end of my rope. I went back to the dermatologist after being on that medication for 6 months, and she gaslit me. She got upset when at the beginning of the process we had said, okay, you're going to take these medications, but she was like, you're going to fail, and then we're going to go on to this fancy medication with the green and yellow marketing. And so when I started that injectable medication, I'm like, okay, I failed these other medications. Any rational patient is going to hear you fail these medications, and what are they going to do? They're going to stop using them. And so that's what I did. I stopped using them, went back 6 months in, and she yelled at me for stopping the topical medications that I supposedly failed. And so I continued on the injectable medication for another 6 months, but I never actually went back to go see her again. And I went on Instagram and I looked for lichen sclerosis, which is what the dermatologist had said I had, and found the top lay person, social media influencer for lichen sclerosis. Found her on Instagram, and she was doing an Instagram live or whatever it was called back then, with Dr. Babb. And so I jumped over to his profile and I started looking at all his posts, and I'm like, oh my goodness, he knows so much about the female pelvic anatomy. I wonder if he can actually figure out what's wrong with me. And so I reached out to him via Instagram DM. I very briefly said, I've been walking this road of pain for 10 years. Nobody can tell me what's wrong. Do you think you can help me? And he's like, yeah, set up a consultation with me. I'm opening my new practice in October. This was like early summer. And we'll get you in and see if we can get you figured out. And so that's what we did. We had a consultation in October, and then we flew to Tulsa for the first time in January of 2023. We did a diagnostic nerve block. We did pelvic floor Botox. He diagnosed me with grade 1 vaginismus, which is when the muscles of the entrance of the vagina like slam shut in anticipation of pain or in response to pain.
Like trauma. Like a form of trauma, basically. On your muscles.
Exactly. Yeah. It is like in response to trauma. Like a lot of like rape victims would end up with vaginismus and stuff like that. So, and Dr. Babb is one of the top doctors for treating vaginismus in the country. I think he's one of 4 doctors in the world that's trained in this very specialized way of treating vaginismus that has like a 90 to 95% success rate. And So we did that, and the pelvic floor Botox, and got a bunch of diagnoses. He did he so he I like to say that he deals with four main things: muscles, nerves, skin, and hormones. And um, so in that first appointment, he diagnosed me with hypertonic pelvic floor dysfunction, which is when my pelvic floor is just spasmed and way too tight. Doesn't mean that it's strong; it's just tight. Um, he diagnosed me with a irritated nerve in my pelvis, and later on, through other visits, because we've been to Tulsa 4 times now since 2023, um, and he's diagnosed me with kind of a hormonal issue, and then as well as this dermatological issue we found in April. So it's been it's been a lot. It's been a little crazy, but yeah, that's my story.
And at this point, where are you at with your doctor?
So funny you should ask that now. I've been going down to see Dr. Babb. You know, first time it was 9 months that we got, and then we went in October, and then it was 6 months, and now it was 6 months again. Um, and so each time we've gone, we've kind of peeled back another layer of the onion. October we did more Botox, and he was like, "Yeah, your pelvic floor is getting better, but it's not where it needs to be." April, he's like, same thing, it's doing better. October was like, hey, we only need to Botox 3 spots. That's great. We like that. So it's possible I'll never have to go back to Tulsa again for treatment. But I have now that dermatological issue that he diagnosed me with in April has kind of risen to the top. And it's like, okay, now we need to deal with this. But I can't just fly back and forth to Tulsa all the time for him to take a look at things.
Right.
And so I met with him yesterday morning. So that's why I said it's funny we're having this conversation now. Um, and it was basically like, hey, you need to find somebody in like that you can go see in person without spending like $2,000 on travel. um, and just get them to lay eyes on it a little bit more often, maybe. And so he was able to actually give me the name of a doctor in Washington who has basically all of the same credentials he does. And he's like, I know this gal, so reach out to her. He didn't tell me to reach out to her, but that was the gist of it. Hey, go see her and see what she says. So I sent her an email immediately, and she emailed me back this morning, and she said, yeah, I'll do a records review for you. Here's my fax number. And I'm like, okay. And right before I hopped on with you, I sent Dr. Babb's office an email and said, here's her fax number. Can you fax over my records so she can kind of do a records review and figure out if she's willing to take on my case? Because like I said, it's been quite involved in peeling back layer after layer after
Mhm.
layer. But if I can find somebody who's 3 hours away from me that can lay eyes on this every other month or whatever we need, that might be what it takes to get to the bottom of this. But again, it was Dr. Babb putting his network together to say, hey, here you go. So I don't know that I ever would have found her if it wasn't for Dr.
Was
Babb
it for
either.
him? Now, before I get into the emotional part and the economics and everything, they still use fax machines?
I think it's like electronic somehow. I'm not sure how it works because like I know like I'll call up like the lab, like if I have to get blood work or something, I'll call it up and they'll be sitting in front of their computer and they'll be able to like fax it from the computer, and I think it goes to their computer. I don't know how it all works, but yeah,
Okay.
I
I'm,
think
I'm
it's
hoping
digital
I'm
now.
hoping they're just using the word fax for email or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
sure,
I think it's something like that.
you
I'm
learn
not sure.
something
I
new
haven't
every
asked,
day.
but now I have been curious about that. What are you talking about? You're not actually faxing this.
I know, right? Okay, so now you said $2,000 to fly there and back. Over the you know decade, 13, 15 years that you've been dealing with this, I mean, with the doctors and surgeries and all this other stuff that you've been through, how much has this cost to get to the point of Dr. Babb and diagnosing, and not even starting the healing process like you said? I mean, really placing names and identifiers and all, and then starting to tackle everything. So That's one question. And then obviously the physical toll, I don't need to ask, because every woman watching or listening understands without further explanation, and every man who doesn't go through these things will never understand. Suffice it to say that it's extremely painful.
Mhm.
But emotionally, socially, how has it affected your life? I mean, your marriage, your friends, because I know sometimes, women go through pains and it knocks the life out of them. I mean, it could be the most anticipated event or party or celebration that you're looking forward to. It could be, I don't know, an anniversary getaway with your husband. So many things could be there on the agenda that you may really look forward to, and then your body just says no.
Yeah, so socially, the early years were the hardest. Especially before my hysterectomy. Since my hysterectomy, I've been able to get out and do a little more. Actually, back in like March, we stumbled across solution a solution for the dermatological pain I was having. Just an over the counter steroid cream, and that helped me a lot. So like, I'll use that, for leaving the house to do an escape room with friends. I'll know I can get 2 hours of relief if I put this cream on right before we leave, and so I'll do that. And so that's one way. To help with the social aspect. And then, yeah, after my hysterectomy, I was able to just start getting out again. And now I don't have to worry about that, being down for two days or more a month. I have a lot more freedom than I had 4 years ago, I feel like. Um, and I've been a lot more open in the last 4 years about what I'm going through. And so I've
Mhm.
had a lot of like chronic pain, chronic illness type friends suddenly pop up. We bump into each other on Facebook. Turns out, well, look, local to each other. Or a friend from church introduces me to her husband's sister, who had some like big medical issues as well, and has to be careful about COVID and all of this stuff. And so she and I have just hit it off. And she's a financial advisor. I'm a money coach in my day-to-day job. And so she and I hit it off amazingly well. We can just trade stories back and forth. And we were supposed to see each other Saturday. We got back from Tulsa on a Friday. We were supposed to see each other the next day. I was just not feeling well. I told her, hey, I can't do it. She's like, no worries. Just let me know when you're better. And I know we'll touch base in the next week or two and see if we can get something scheduled to have tea or coffee or
Mhm.
something. Um, my marriage, this one is hard for me because I feel like my pain was actually a really, really good thing for our relationship. And that is not the experience for a lot of women. I would say the majority of women out there. I've heard so many stories of women whose husbands have left them because they can't have intercourse because it's too painful, or stuff like that, or women whose husbands force them anyway. And it's just like, what? This isn't fair. Men need to man up and help their wives who are going through pain and realize it's not all about them. Um, so I would say it forced us to figure out a new way to communicate, and it helped me learn that, hey, I can speak up and I have a voice in our marriage. And so I would think overall it's been a good thing. And that's not to say it hasn't been hard, especially for my husband, but he's been incredibly patient and continues to be incredibly patient. And I could not do this without him. Um,
He
like he,
understands. He understands
yeah,
the situation, right? That's what
yeah,
it
like
that's what
right
it
now,
really boils down to.
yeah, he understands. He has compassion for me.
Right.
He's willing to pick up the slack where there is slack. So, and I'm suddenly like, did he take the dog out this morning, or was I supposed to do that? He took the dog out this morning, so we're good. Um, and so all of that to say, um, to those husbands who may be listening, whose wives are, dealing with painful periods 1 or 2 days a month, please just be nice to them. Um, it really isn't fun. And also try to encourage them to find answers, because if it is endometriosis, that can be helped. It's expensive, but it can be helped. It can be solved. Endometriosis excision, actually going in and cutting out the endometriosis, is considered the gold standard treatment. Unfortunately, most surgeons who do that are out of network because insurance literally does not have a code for billing purposes for endometriosis excision. So they have to use other codes to kind of cobble things together. And then they don't end up getting reimbursed the amount that they need to be reimbursed in order to keep their doors open. So that's why they can't accept insurance. But then because they're not accepting insurance, it's more expensive out of pocket for the patient. So like my endometriosis surgeon charged $5,000 in 2020 just for her services. And then there was like the hospital on top of that.
Mhm.
And thankfully, our insurance situation at the time was such we were part of a co-op system and they paid for almost everything. I think we had to pay like $300. And then, but going through everything we've been going through with Dr. Babb, that hasn't been the case. Now we have traditional insurance, which doesn't cover out of network very well. In fact, and then when you do get an out of network bill, instead of taking the bill at face value, it'll say, oh, here's the Medicare reimbursement for that. That's what we're going to apply for your deductible. So it'd be like a $300 appointment with Dr. Babb, and we get $90 applied to our out of network deductible. And it's just painful. So altogether, I know we've paid Haven Center, Dr. Babb's office, $5,000 this year. I know we paid them over 10. We paid them close to 10 last year, I think. So we're probably about $12,000 or $13,000 directly to them. And then we also paid the hospital. No, we didn't have to pay the hospital last year because there was a snafu with the first bill. So we ended up that saved us like $3,500 right there. There was just a snafu with the bill, and the hospital ended up just writing it off. And then by October, I'd met my in-network deductible. The hospital was in-network, so we only had to pay like 10% of that bill or something.
Mhm.
So, but it's very, like you said,
So overall, this is like a $500 a month issue.
Oh yeah. I can
When you
definitely
break
tell
it
you.
down.
I have two lines on my budget. One for insurance, like covered by insurance medical expenses, and then for not insured medical expenses. And between the two of them, I think I'm putting be almost $600 a month into those two lines right now. Because I've
That's
also
expensive.
started counseling.
Yeah.
That was the other thing that Dr. Babb said when we saw him a couple weeks ago in Tulsa. He said, Stephanie, you really should see a counselor. And I think this is the second time he told me that. Didn't listen the first time, should have. But then, because that's the other thing that women who are dealing with chronic pain or chronic illness go through is people try to tell them that it's all in their heads.
Mhm.
Counselors, they mean well. I actually had like a pain coach. I'm not sure what her official title would have been. I only met with her once because she told me, Stephanie, at some point you're going to just have to accept that your pain is all in your head. And I know enough about like neuroscience right now to know, yes, there are, your brain does change when you are in pain, and it becomes more difficult for your brain to tell your body, hey, that's not actually pain. That's just, your muscles stretching and it doesn't feel good right now. But she was wrong. This gal who told me that my pain was all in my head, because I hadn't had that biopsy with Dr. Babb yet to know, oh yeah, I actually do have a legitimate dermatological issue going on.
Mhm.
And so that's why I was so hesitant to see a counselor or a therapist or anything like that, because I didn't want to be told, oh, it's all in your head, because I knew it
Right.
wasn't all in my head.
And also I think, you know, today, maybe more so over the last decade and exponentially so throughout the pandemic, the mental health aspect of everything has kicked into high gear. And so there's a lot of misdiagnosis with that. A lot of things get thrown into mental health, and it's in your head and things like that. And they try to resolve the problems through there. Whereas, actually a doctor friend of mine made a joke once, and she said it's become so bad in the medical field that someone can walk in with a clear break in their arm, and they will try to psychologically assess the person before an x-ray and before a cast. And so, it's funny, but when you think about it, it is not funny at all. And so when you speak about that, it takes me directly to her and the conversations I've had with her about how mental health discussions mm, are being used in these ways. And sometimes it is exactly what you said. You need to find the source of the problem and not really push it over to, hey, you're in a lot of pain, it's okay, live with it, be zen with it, or take some, I don't know, spiritual approach towards sitting with your pain. And I say to people,
Yeah.
no, another friend of mine, extreme lower back pain to the point that um, he went on a trip with his family to Disney World, and this was right after pandemic kind of ended, and they went there. They hadn't been for a few years. They always go. They're not too far from there, and he couldn't walk, and he had to stay behind. And so I was speaking with him, and he said, oh, you know what, I'm taking these yoga classes, and I'm starting to learn to sit with my pain, and going through all this, the mantra. And I said, no, that's great that you're learning to sit with your pain, but you want to know why you have pain, because it's not normal for a human body to have this pain. If you look at the 8 billion people in the world, it is not the majority that go through this pain. So that is not a normal thing. You need to go to a doctor. You need to get a look at, see what's wrong with your back, right, first, and then get to the root of it. And if a doctor says, hey, yeah, this is the problem, but we can't fix it, no science can fix it, you have to live with it, that's when you go and learn how to sit with the pain. But you don't go learn how to sit with the pain when you can fix it first. And that's kind of, I feel like you fought that too. You're like, no, I want to know what's wrong before I learn to sit with the pain.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Now, speaking of that, how did you overcome the all these adverse effects of the multiple gynecologic pain generators uh, on your overall life? I mean, we spoke about it socially, economically, and all this other stuff. um, Naturally, well, you had the funds, you had the $600 a month, for example, whether it's a line of credit, whether it's your own savings, whatever it is, you had the funds, you paid it. So that's that. But up here in your heart, in your head, how have you been able to continue for over a decade? Because sometimes, you know, it's a 6-month period. It's a form. Even cancer sometimes is literally a 1-year process or a 2-year process. If of going through a lot. My mom had cancer. She went through a lot, but um, it's she beat it, but it's always in the back of her mind. So you never really heal from it, even though you've beat the actual cancer. But with you, how do you get over all of this mentally? I mean, what's the strength there?
I would say my faith in God. It keeps me putting one foot in front of the other. Like I literally even like name my my dog. Um, so there's this story in the Bible in Genesis 16 about Hagar, um, and she was this woman who
Mhm.
Abraham had taken and slept with her. She had a baby because God had told Abraham and Sarah, his wife, that they were going to have a baby, and so they took matters into their own hands and had Abraham slept with
And had the
Hagar, had
baby.
Ishmael, and um, then Sarah made Abraham send Hagar away. And so in Genesis 16, Hagar is like talking to God, and she is the only person in the Bible to give God a name. And that is, she told God, "You are the God who sees me." And in Hebrew, that word is El Roi. And so that was
Hmm.
kind of the theme that God gave me during the pandemic as I was going through like my hysterectomy recovery and trying to figure out how to run a business online during the pandemic, wanting to help people with their finances when finances were like super tight for everyone. And, I'd go months without signing a new client and I'd be like, I don't know what to do. And then God would just remind me, he'd show me this story again. And I'm the God who sees you. It's okay. Everything's going to be fine. it may not look like the way you want it to look, but it's going to be okay. And so when we got our dog a year and a half ago, I'm like, the dog's name is Elroy. um for Elroy. And so it's fun. Like every time I say his name, I'm reminded that God sees me where I am. He sees me in the difficulties I'm facing each day. And I just need to take everything a day at a time, and he will take care of it. And I literally had this conversation with somebody else like a week or two ago. I'm like, hey, it's tough right now. I feel like I can't keep up with this, this marketing coaches marketing group that I'm a part of, trying to, get some sales before the end of the year. And I've really just kind of had to take a back seat and let my social media marketing just slide, just coast. And I just don't have the energy to get on Instagram and comment on other people's stuff all the time. And when I've done that in the past, like when I was running my piano studio very early on in my journey, God would just bring me students here, there, and like whatever. I hardly do any marketing other than putting a listing on Craigslist back in the day, and uh, and it worked. And so and then that same thing happened after I told this other coach, hey, this is kind of where I'm at as far as my marketing goes. What do I know? Like 3 consultations got booked on my calendar that week that I had never talked to before. And so that's the sort of thing that keeps me going, is God saying, hey, see, I've got you. I'll put these 3 people on your calendar. I'll show you I'm still working. I've got you. And it's the same thing with my pain. Like, yeah, I'm a little bummed that, hey, Dr. Babb seems to be passing me off to another doctor, but he's also looking up for me. And God's like, hey, here's this doctor over here who, again, just opened her solo practice in June of this year. So if I looked for her a year ago, I wouldn't have found her. So it's just, it's just putting my one foot in front of the other every single day, taking it a day at a time, and evaluating, hey, what do I have the energy to do today? And so last night, for the first time like ever, I've been asking my husband over the last couple months, can you get this? Can you get this? Can you get this? With the idea of, I wanted to make egg bites so I could have egg bites for breakfast, like the Starbucks ones. And I finally was able to make a batch last night. And that was such a huge physical victory for me, that I was able to stand in the kitchen and chop up these peppers and onions. And we actually had fewer eggs than I needed, but it worked out because I just threw extra mix-ins. Like, we had sausage, we had cheese, we had veggies, we had eggs, we had sour cream, we had everything I needed. I just threw it together, stuck it in the oven, and baked it for like 27 minutes. It was great. It was so easy, and they tasted pretty good. I had them for breakfast this morning. So yeah, if anybody is listening to this and is in pain, I would say just take life one day at a time, 1 hour at a time if you need to, 1 minute at a time if you need to. And if people are saying mean things to you because they don't understand what you're going through, they don't deserve your time or energy anyway. So yes, there is a point for education, and it can be helpful if you're brave enough to start putting your story out on social media so your friends actually know what's going on. But it's also not on you to educate them. If you have a diagnosis, tell them your diagnosis and say, if you want to know what I'm going through, go read about this. And that takes it off your plate and puts it on theirs. And then you don't have to spend any more energy. And if they read about it and they come back to you and say, hey, can I bring you dinner every Wednesday? Say yes. Just say yes. And friends, if you have friends who are in chronic pain, same sort of thing. Offer to bring them dinner, because often cooking takes a lot of physical energy. And we're either eating things that aren't great for us, or we're ordering takeout, which also isn't great for us. And so if you have a friend like that who is suffering, ask them, hey, what are you able to eat? And is there some way I can help you eat healthy? And see what they say, or you may have to take it one step further and say, hey, tell me what you can eat and I will bring you dinner once a week.
And you know what? Going back to your faith, that's where community comes in.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you live faithfully in that sense, you live in community. And if you live in community, you always have people who are, you know, arm's length away, waiting to compassionately serve, because that's what friends do. That's what communities, they watch out for each other. And that is now perfect way to get into the next question, which is exactly what you're doing. You're doing the noble thing. You actually took your pain and took your struggles and took your suffering and took everything you've learned from it and packaged it and came out and you said, here I am. I'm not only going to share, what I'd like to call a success story, because you've gone from a very, very bad place to, the light. You're reaching the light, essentially. As you're saying, you've diagnosed things, you're in the process of healing now and working on them, so that's great. But you also are you're an activist, because you're really acting on it and you're trying to make a difference. You're trying to make a change in this situation that people are going to. And essentially, the reason why, when I heard your story and I heard what you're doing, um, I wanted to have you on the show, because that is what a Compassiviste is. When I started Compassiviste and I named it, I took the word compassion and activist and put them together, and it says Compassiviste. And the reason there's an E at the end is because I believe all of that momentum and force comes from the feminine within us, right? And so I think the world was built in that way, whether you think about it from a Big Bang perspective, or Garden of Eden perspective, however you want to look at it. It's that motherly love. Even in the Genesis story of God making Adam and Eve, it's that motherly creation. It's that motherly love that was kind of instilled into creating the world. And if you look at it from any other perspective, it's always that feminine uh, developmental power that comes into play: the compassion, the community, the support, the motherly care, the nurturing, and all of that. So the word really is a compassionate activist who uses compassion as the first ground of thinking and as the module of their momentum, and it always has to come from that source. So you found a path to cure your pain because you were consistently insisting on, no, I need to go further and further until I can fight it. And then you share this with others and walk them through your journey. And now you've taken it a step further. You said, I'm going to formally do this. And you're actively connecting people with medical professionals and even funding their travels and procedure expenses, because you went through this. And like we said, it's $600 a month. Not a lot of people have an extra $600 a month plus the time to do that, because you may have the 600, but if you also go and invest a whole weekend of going to Oklahoma and back from wherever you are, and that's only for Americans. I mean, now imagine you don't live in the United States, and now you have to find another Dr. Babb, or connect with Dr. Babb with your own doctor and stuff. It's you know enormous expenses all of a sudden, and logistical issues. Now you're doing this all because you essentially didn't want any woman going through the pain and suffering that you had to go through for a long time, if you can help it. It wasn't really, hey, I'm a business coach, I'm a money coach, I found what I can do next. I'm going to start this new company and I'm going to charge people thousands of dollars to give them advice, or get commission to send them to Dr. Babb or anything like that. So tell us about, run us through the journey again, from when the idea came to you to support others going through your own pain. What triggered you to say, I'm in pain? That's one thing, but I don't want to see other people in pain as well. If they're going through what I'm going, what can I do about it? This is what I'm going to do about it. How did that come to be?
Well, it was 3:30 in the morning, the day of that first consultation with Dr. Babb back in October of 2022. And I woke up at 3:30 in the morning thinking to myself, how did I get so privileged to have the financial resources I do to be able to consult with a doctor of this caliber? And how can I help other women who don't have the financial resources I do for whatever reason? Maybe they're still dealing with student loan debt. Maybe they're under crippling credit card debt because of their own behavior before they got into pain. I don't know. Maybe they're a single mom. Maybe they're a single student still living in their parents' basement trying to pay off student loans, whatever it is. How can I help them? And how can I help them now? Not in our estate planning when we're dead and gone, but I want to do it now while I can see what's happening and who we're helping and stuff like that. So I sat with that for like 3 months. I didn't remember that I had a way to like snap my fingers and start a nonprofit, because I had already started a project in the women's health sphere that had and still has nonprofit status back in like 2009. And but we hadn't had to do any fundraising because that group, as social media had changed, we had moved from our own forum into a Facebook group. And once we were a Facebook group, we didn't have to pay for hosting or anything like that. So we didn't have to do any fundraising. And we hadn't done any fundraising. Like 2014 was when we made our Facebook group. So it'd been almost 8 years. And so I had just forgotten about this group for like 5 years. And so I was actually in Tulsa. I went to see Dr. Babb in Oklahoma. And I had my procedure. I was back at the hotel. I was recovering from anesthesia. I had my phone in my hand, and all of a sudden it just hit me that I had a way to snap my fingers and start this nonprofit. So I reached out to the same group that had the other project that I had started, and I said, "Hey, are you still taking new projects? Are you still out there?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're still out here." And I'm like, "I have another idea for a women's health project. Would you be interested in chatting about it?" And they said, "Sure." So we sat down a week after I got back from Tulsa, and I said, "This is what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And they're like, "Yeah, we think it sounds great. We'll just see it as an extension of what you're already doing with us. And you don't even have to fill out any more paperwork. Just let us know what you want us to put on our website." And I didn't even have a name for the thing yet. And so I'm like, okay, I better hurry and find a name. So I jump on Google and I'm like, I want a word that means strength. And I didn't want an English word because, as you alluded to, like earlier, there's women around the world who are dealing with this pain. And I can easily see this project going international at some point. There are doctors in Romania that are doing endometriosis excision, and it would be way cheaper to send somebody from Africa to Romania than to bring them all the way to the States. So, um, so we'll see how
Or
it
even
grows.
to train doctors in Africa, because
Yeah,
or move doctor to Africa, because one doctor can serve hundreds of women.
yeah, and that's another
Yeah.
facet of the AZIZA project too. We have multiple arms. We have like 3, I would say. We've got the patient one, which we've gotten up and running. Let me throw in, AZIZA means beloved, precious, and mighty. And that, when I found that word on Google, I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly how these women need to feel. They need to know that they're beloved, precious, and mighty, even in the midst of their pain. And so the AZIZA Project was born. So then I had a name, and yeah, I could easily see this going international because we've got the patient arm, but I also know that patients do better when they're treated by doctors who look like them.
Mm.
And like right now, we have a white heterosexual like Protestant doctor in the Midwest of the US. Like, how much more stereotypical male can you get? And I love him to pieces. He's the best doctor I've ever seen. But the one gal we've sent from out of state to see him so far is a woman of color, and she was very anxious about going to see this white doctor until she got there and experienced his clinic. And so I'm a white woman, so I couldn't just sit here and say, "Oh, it's going to be fine, you'll be okay." Like I could not do anything to erase her concern except share my experience, but she couldn't even really take my experience at face value because it wasn't the same as her experience.
Mm-hmm.
But she got there and discovered, "Oh my goodness, I feel so welcome. This is such a gentle process." I don't remember her exact words, but it was just that it far exceeded all her expectations as far as talking to a white male doctor about her, person of color, female concerns, and she loved it. And she's so excited about the AZIZA Project now. And so grateful that we were able to help her along in her journey to a diagnosis as well.
And I like that you're looking at this in the expansion model because one thing I criticize about nonprofits all the time is a lot of people start to help in a way that can only benefit a specific target population, um, and nobody else. And if they do really well, I mean, if they do amazingly well, they are only servicing that target population. And I think we're at a point today globally that we're so interconnected and it's so easy to communicate from the ends of the world and program and plan everything that there's no need to niche market anymore. We should the world started with this, global view where, for example, you think of Greek philosophy, and it's taking this global view, philosophically, right? And they're not speaking of just Greece, they're speaking of global mentality. And then as we grew and as science grew, we started becoming more specialized. And then today, you can get a PhD in just one tiny part of one aspect of one issue within a field. And I think it's time again to do exactly as you're saying, to re-expand and say, I'm not only dealing with women in Washington or in this area of Washington, even worse, right? I want to take this international. I want to make this global. And it's very easy. Technically speaking, it's very easy. Website, get the doctors connected, get people connected, get them regionally connected. Doctors in these areas, people can just connect with them. So the logistical issues are very easy to do. But you touch on a very good point. Not only you're the person you've helped being a woman of color, but now you bring in religions. A lot of religions, women can't go and see a male doctor if there is a female doctor available. Now, how do you work with that? Then there are other issues, logistic issues, like you said. You can't fly everybody out of Africa and Australia to Oklahoma to see one doctor. And God forbid, if this one doctor gets sick for a week, what happens, right? The whole world shuts down essentially. So that's another huge issue. I mean, you have these appointments that are 6 months apart. Imagine, your doctor falls ill, has COVID that week. There's no way you can see that doctor, right? It's not like he has a cold, just come in, tough it out. I mean, it's impossible. So you do need to expand and you do need to look at this from a perspective, because this is an issue that's not affecting one specific type of women in one geographical location. It's not American women who are white and live in, Northeast USA. It's global. These are global issues. So I love that you're thinking about it that way. What are you doing to start um, imagining a global AZIZA project?
Honestly, not a whole lot right now as far as imagining the global aspect, but and thinking that large, because I know that there are certain things that we need to do before we can think that large. So that's what I'm focusing on right now, is those building blocks of how do we get there.
Hmm.
Like, I know, I in my mind I kind of know what there looks like we've got this patient care arm. I want to have like
Hmm.
a doctor education arm where doctors can go and shadow these other doctors that are the Aziza affiliated
Right.
providers.
A clinic,
And
basically.
then, like, I also want to have a scholarship arm so that we can offer scholarships to medical students who want to treat these complex gynecologic pain issues, so that they don't come out of medical school saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Because what happens when they come out saddled with all of
Hmm.
that debt is very hard for them to go into a specialty right off the bat, or to start their own clinic right off the bat.
Hmm.
And so I want to make that more financially feasible. But my my focus is the patients. We got to get the patients out of pain. And people and donors love stories, so we can get patient stories to help more donations come in. So that's where I'm working right now, is trying to build a solid donor base of people who are giving to the AZIZA Project on a monthly basis. Even $5 a month um, is fantastic. 16 can pay for one blood test for a patient. Um, And so if people want to come alongside us and join our team as monthly donors, that's a huge help because that's what enables us to help more patients. And as we grow and we have more donors and maybe eventually we'll get that $10,000 gift or something that we can use to then pay for one patient to go to Tulsa to get treated for vaginismus, and then we have this fantastic story of, hey, maybe she wasn't able to consummate her marriage, but now she's pregnant and due in 4 months. Like, how much fun is that going to be? To have
So
that story finally.
that's actually, that story is priceless. It's not a $10,000 story. It's a priceless story.
Yeah,
Giving someone the gift of being able to create life. Essentially, it's not a, it's not a 10,000, 100,000, nothing like that. It's a priceless. And again, here at Compassive East, I try to bring that collective um, ideology to the table. Again, going back to community, and I think your story, when shared and reshared, and when it grows and a lot of people hear about what you're doing with the AZIZA project, then if we can get 10 million people to literally give you $1 each, that's not a lot of people. When I see numbers like that, people are like, 10 million, that's nothing. That's not even a percent of the global population. It's a joke. Uh,
yeah,
there are over 10 million people who are millionaires. They can
yeah,
afford to give $1 each, easy, right? And we don't want them to give $1 every month. We just want them to give $1 one time, and
sure.
you,
We
you
need
know
to
what
go
I
up.
mean? And yeah, and with that kind of funding, you're in a place to then say, okay, now we can really set up scholarships and talk to this specific university to say, look, we need allocation. We need 10 of our students coming in at a special discounted rate or something to get these students out there to be able to do this in the future. We need a training program, in person, online, in different areas of the world, clinics for our doctors so that they can get trained on this. And we need to support the patients because not everybody is wealthy. Not everybody has, like you said, you're blessed, you're privileged, and I also appreciate that you understand that. A lot of people don't. I come from the finance world. I used to have my own fund, so you can imagine the caliber of clients I had, and they didn't understand poverty. They didn't understand why you can't work, why you just can't work. And so it's a very, very different kind of mentality. So I'm grateful that you appreciate your position financially to be able to be here, because being able to help yourself and then to help others today, unfortunately, is not just a being kind thing. Being kind is expensive today, and that's a reality of what we live in. And I don't beat around the bush about it. I mean, the Mother Teresa, lovely story, but today it's expensive to become Mother Teresa. It's not like
Yeah,
it was. You cannot be Mother Teresa anymore. So people need to come together and really do this. I mean, yes, it's great to get a donor. You know, uh, Mackenzie, if you're listening, please send a few $1 million to the AZIZA project. But aside from that, it's even greater to have multiple groups really supporting what you're doing, and to help and grow that. Now, you are so $10,000 helps one patient essentially within the US to kind of get everything sorted and done. And then
that's
uh
the start. Yeah,
yeah, that's like the start of, if this is exactly what you have and everything is like easy and set, then it's going to be around that mark. Which
mhm,
honestly, again, looking at it relatively, it's not that much, because when you go to, I don't know, Chanel or Louis Vuitton or some of these brands, and you look at the price tags on a purse, they're pretty much there.
yeah,
Like, instead of buying that one purse, help a woman, like you said, be pregnant. Like,
yeah,
how do you, I'd rather walk around with that badge of honor on my arm, saying I was a part of this AZIZA
yeah,
project, and this is what happened, than a Chanel purse that says, look at my status, because that status is so much wealthier to me. It,
yeah.
it brings so much more wealth than the status that a designer good can. So there's so many ways that this can be helped, and I like what you're doing. So obviously, I'm going to be there for the ride, and we're going to help you as much as we can through the Compassiviste networks, obviously, to raise funds and allocate to the things that you do. I have a friend, Val Emanuel. She started RIF Care, RIF Care. It's healthier women's hygiene products, and she's based out of LA. She started modeling. That was her career, and she's a celebrity. And then she really got into this, and she had issues as well. And she started, taking matters into her own hand and kind of, doing this. And I think I'm definitely putting you in touch with her and other people in my network, and trying to see if we can raise a community of people that can support what you're doing, because it's really, really noble. Now, for all the people already here, um, how do people reach you for both help and support? So I'm a woman, I'm sick, I have pains, I need healing. Where do I go? And I'm a woman or a man, and I want to help and donate. Where do I go? Those are two questions I have for you. And yeah, how do you deal with those two streams of people?
Well, it's simple. Like, it's the same stream, or well, both streams go to the same place. So they should go to our website, azizaproject.org. And there's a button that says schedule with Stephanie. So regardless of if you're a potential donor or if you're a potential client or you're just somebody who's dealing with pain and just wants to talk to somebody, schedule with me. And we'll have a 30-minute Zoom chat. You can ask me whatever you want to ask me. You can tell me your story if you're dealing with pain. I may have additional resources, because that's the other thing that I've done, finding myself doing as a result of this, is I will connect with women on social media, or they will find me through the website, and they'll reach out and they'll say, this is what I'm dealing with. And I'll say, hey, we don't deal with that right now. Or here's another resource that might get you to, not Dr. Babb, say, in Oklahoma, because
Hmm.
maybe they don't have something that would warrant going all that direction. But if they can find a good doctor that's local to them, then that's great. So one of the other nonprofits that we've networked with, I guess,
Hmm.
is the Lichen Sclerosis Support Network. So anyone listening who has lichen sclerosis should check them out. They have a provider directory of probably patient recommended doctors who deal with lichen sclerosis. So if
Hmm.
right now with the AZIZA Project, if I run into somebody who is dealing with lichen sclerosis, already has a diagnosis, but needs some more support, I say, hey, go check out their provider directory. Dr. Babb does deal with lichen sclerosis, but right now my focus is on helping women who don't have a diagnosis yet,
Right.
um,
Okay.
so that they can get at least started on the
Mhm.
diagnostic process.
So
Um,
at that entry level, basically at the stage one of the
yeah,
situation, that's where you're
yeah.
focusing on.
hmm
Okay.
And
And
then for the people who want to donate or
right,
help the project, whether that's monetarily, volunteering hours, because there's things going on behind the scenes that I would love to get off my plate so I can focus on other things.
right, right.
um, I would say, again, go to the website. There's a button in one of the top corners that says donate. You can click on that. That'll take you to our donate page where you can make a donation. You can sign up for a monthly donation. Like I said, even $5 a month
Right.
is huge for us at this point. So we would love some bigger donations. Last year, our biggest donation was $1,200. So
Yeah,
I
no,
would
no,
love,
no. I really want to focus on really bringing in some serious money into this by not asking people to donate $10,000 each, but really, like you said, every person should commit to give that 5, 10, 20, whatever it is. And when thousands of people commit to doing that, that's how we help. It's not about
yeah,
listen to this episode, go wild, give her all your savings, and then just drown the next day. No, don't do that. Don't ever do that for any cause, because you want to stay healthy and strong so you can continue helping. But commit to it full time, every month, repeatedly, and commit to it with an emotion and with a prayer that says, I hope and I pray everybody else is also committing to this so that it can reach its goal. That's how community work really works. That's how community fundraising works. Everybody puts in $5, 1,000 people do that, and all of a sudden, you know, we're raising money. We're raising half of one person's cost. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how it happens.
And our tagline for the AZIZA Project is hope for gynecologic pain. And I love talking to men because I'm like, this is how you can offer hope by donating to the
Yes.
AZIZA Project and helping us get this funding up and running smoothly. And so, yeah, if all you can afford, and I don't even care if it's $5, if you can do a
Mm,
dollar, that's at least a dollar I don't have to raise again. So, whatever you can do helps helps us offer
yeah.
hope to those women, and by giving $5 a month you are offering hope
Hmm.
to someone else who needs hope in the midst of her pain.
And really at this point, what you're doing is very straightforward. It's a skeletal design. It's not complicated. And as much as you may need somebody to help you with, I don't know, social media or accounting or something, really, the bottom line is right now, the Aziza project needs money. Right now, it needs that investment. It needs that hefty donation to get people treated and to start looking at this from a larger scope of saying, I don't want to simply beg and beg to raise $10,000 every few months so I can send one person potentially to get treated by Dr. Babb, but I want to have the millions so that I can fix the infrastructural issue of the root cause, which is essentially get doctors trained in the right way, get them practicing in the right way, get them in a situation where people can afford to see these doctors and heal their pains and cure. And so, that is the goal. The goal should never be, I just want to raise $20,000 every year so I can send two people to the doctor. The goal should always be exactly like you have it in your mind. It should be grand, it should be global, it should be to end the problem. And that's my exit strategy model. I always tell people, if you don't have an exit strategy in your model, which means you don't have a global vision of how this can be resolved as an issue, I don't want to hear the rest of your
Yeah.
story because you're just short-sighted at that point. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
coming from the finance world, people like me are just that blunt and that short. They don't give you the time. When people used to come in, you know, get the chance to come to me for funding, they had a minute to impress and they had to have everything together because I'm not going to waste my money and then mentor you on an idea that you bring to the table that I'm going to get only 10% or 20% with my investment and you're going to become a millionaire because I basically worked instead of you. So, it's a tough place to be. And now that I've moved into the social impact world, I bring that same momentum. I bring that
Mhm.
same momentum that I had in the fund and in the finance world. And I love that you have that attitude. And that's why the Aziza project is going to be successful because you have that attitude. You have that fearless attitude of, I'm going to go global.
Yeah.
Stephanie, thank you so much for speaking on Compassiviste Dialogues. And thank you for inspiring people with your story and having the courage to come out and speak about it. Not, I've been involved with many women's issues, and it's really one of the things I find that I encourage women to do more of is speak out because so many issues are just so hidden, and so many of them are just spoken amongst best friends women groups. Like two women are comfortable, best friend women are comfortable talking about their periods, the pains, all the issues that they're going through together alone. But then as soon as their husband's there, it's like change the topic. Why? This is your life partner. Your life partner should know all of these things about you. Like there shouldn't be that. No, this is not concerning my husband, or my husband wouldn't understand. Bring them into the conversation, teach them, show them, let them learn. That's very important. And I love that you are also blessed in that way. And, having, like you said, a compassionate husband who was able to understand and was able to have that kind of compassion. So, thank you for the courage of doing all those things. And then finally, really a lot of gratitude for your vision and for acting on your vision and your idea to build the AZIZA project and to really, compassionately have this purpose of helping people and being in a leadership position to be able to do this, because I know when the funding comes that you will be able to manage and to grow this. So um, life is about purpose, and I think your purpose was to suffer what you did so that you can turn it around and do what you're doing, and I don't want to sound cliche, but it is that. I mean, you went through, you know decade and a half of this kind of pain and still are going through it. And I think, God gave you that mission, saying you have the know-how, you have the courage, you have the fight in you to overcome and to help and to fix this. And so here's that packet on your table, and this is your job essentially, and you've taken it on, and I love that. And like I said, we're here to support. To the audience, please subscribe to the Compassiviste Dialogues channel and share Stephanie's episode, because we need to get as many people to hear about this, and we need to get as many people to do something about this and to go to their website, AZIZA Project, and click that donate button. All the links to Stephanie and her AZIZA Project are listed below. So as soon as you're done here, click on that before you do anything else. We're here to help change the world together. I'm Ali Horiat. Thank you.